Hey everybody, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. We've got a cool new gaming case from ASUS. So this is the GT302 ARGB, part of the TUF Gaming Alliance. It says right there, TUF Gaming Case. So we've got interchangeable side panels. We've got support for a 360mm radiator on top. We've got pre-built 4 140 by 28mm ARGB fans, so that'll be cool to check out. So looks like we've got some glass going on there too, and we've got some information down the side with the part number. I believe this is a white case. A lot of times these are available in black or white. So let's see, let me flip the box around here so we can get a better look at these specifications. So we can go all the way up to an eATX, which is an extended ATX. We've got an ATX, a micro ATX, and a mini ITX. Those are all the motherboards that it supports. There's the general dimensions. It's made out of steel, tempered glass, ABS plastic. We've got two USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, one USB 3.2 Type-C, a headphone and microphone. We've got drive bays, 3.5, 2.5. We've got two of those, 2.5. Drive bays, another two. Looks like these are interchangeable. You can use either one. Expansion slots, we've got 8 of those. Vertical expansion slots, 3. Maximum GPU length is 407. Maximum cooler height, 165 millimeters. Maximum PSU length, that's pretty standard. Okay, so radiator compatibility, we've got 140 or 280 in the front. We've got top 120, 140, 240, 280, up to 360. The rear, we've got 120 or 140. Cooling support, we've got 3 140 millimeter fans. Top, we've got 3 140 or 3 120. This just says support, so that doesn't mean they're there. That just means you can put those types and sizes of fans in those positions. Okay, here we go, pre-installed fans. Okay, so we do have 3 140s up front, ARGB, PWMs, and we've got 1 140 in the rear. So we've got a total of 4 fans in the case. We've got some dust filters, cable routing. Okay, we got all that excitement out of the way. Let's see, we've got some more information here on the back. Let me get the box moved. Much better. Okay, so we've got multiple languages here. It looks like there's all kinds of information, but it's really the same information, just in different languages. So we got square type front panel, engineered to maximize airflow. Interchangeable side panel design enables switching between optimal cooling performance and full interior view. So we'll definitely check that out. Unique 4 fans that we just talked about that are included with this case. Removable top panel design to facilitate faster system assembly. I've seen cases that have that, and that is a really nice feature. Supports ATX motherboards with hidden connectors to the fullest extent, so we'll look into that too. Okay, out of the box, we'll get the bag off of here in a moment. Here's the accessory box. We've got some screws. Looks like a little assembly tool. Some plastic clips. And a little quick start guide, user manual. Oh, this is nice. Here's your vertical GPU mount panel. So looks like if you want to go with a vertical GPU mount, you'll swap this panel out. And then we've got some cable ties. All right, so let's get the bag off of the case. Okay, so I did take a quick measurement on the height. It is 20.5 inches, and that's important if you're trying to get this thing shoved under a desk and you have clearance issues. That is important to know. And on the width, it is about 9 1/4. And the overall length looks like, again, about 19 1/4 for that dimension. And the entire side panel is perforated with these little tiny squares. So we've got the ultimate in airflow. There's no back panel to block any air movement through that side of the case. The front is generously ventilated. You can see the 3 140 millimeter ARGB fans there. There's your I/O section with your 3 USB 3.0 ports there. Got a little power switch, reset button. There's your microphone, headphone jack, and then a Type-C USB port. But you can see the holes there are quite large, so we should have no problem getting airflow through there. And across the entire top, it is the same type of ventilation. You can see we do have a dust filter down in there, and the same here. We've got some screening there, or some mesh for filtering everything. We've got a nice gap here at the bottom to allow air to go in, and we do have some little hard to tell. I'll get the case flipped over here in a little bit, but there's some little rubber feet on the bottom, which is pretty standard. Now over here, we've got tempered glass side panel. You got to be careful with these, especially the corners. Do not smack the corners on anything. Tempered glass is amazingly strong, but it can be fragile. Don't ask how I know that. I've broken a couple of these in the day, and it was usually from me doing something careless or not paying attention. And yeah, you know in a hurry when one of those things pops. Here's the back of the case. You can see how wide this is. There's all kinds of room. The entire back of the case is also ventilated to let air out, so we should have no problem with airflow inside this case. And airflow through your case is very important to get airflow across your motherboard and all the components to keep everything cool, especially your solid state drives. Alright, so let's get the top off. And before I tear into that too much, it's always a good idea to review your manual here, because sometimes these panels, it's obvious how they come off, and other times it's not, and you don't want to damage something trying to remove it in a way that it was not supposed to be removed. So I like to skim through the manual real quick and become familiar with all of the components. So here this is showing you how to take the side panels, top panel, front panel off. See, that's good. So the front panel you'd pull up from the bottom. Looks like there's a little release down there. So good information to know before you really tear into it. So this looks like a pretty good manual. I'll go through and familiarize myself before I go too far. Okay, so it looks like this top pops off there. We've got the little detents here, that little sockets up there that receive those, so they snap in. This looks like a, let's see, is this panel? Sometimes these are, yep, it is magnetized. Got a little magnetic strip around the perimeter. So it makes this easy to remove and clean and put back in here. So that is very nice. So there's the top panel. Now let's look at the top of the case with that panel removed. So here is your radiator or fan mounting bracket. If you're just going to put fans up here, you can do that too. You don't have to put a radiator up there if you don't want to. And it looks like, I'll get the glass panel removed, and this here should also open up. And as many of these panels as I've removed over the years, I'm still, on that first time, a little paranoid when I take them off. So that, okay. So we've got our catches at the top here. These are the little sockets or the receivers that these little ball detents here go into. And then we've got a ridge down here at the bottom that captures, or it is captured across the top of this here. So it's very easy to put this back in. So you just drop it down at the bottom, it catches, rotate the top in, and you'll hear a couple snaps as the little ball detents go into the receivers. And there's actually a little place here for your thumb to get started on popping this off. And then when you remove it, be very, very, very careful. There's actually plastic on here to protect the glass. I'll get that off in a little bit. When you set this down on the ground again, just be careful not to smack the corners on anything, because that's a vector for a crack to start, a fracture to start, and then the whole thing just pops. Okay, so the inside here, we've got the same mesh across the bottom here again, so good airflow to any hard drives that are down there, and your power supply. You need to make sure you can get air down there. Of course, most of your power supply air is going to come in from the bottom of the case, and Actually, let me go ahead and just flip this thing up so we can see the bottom. I'll just go ahead and flip it over like this. Let me move the camera so we can see what's going on. There, now you can see the bottom, and it actually has its own dedicated dust panel to keep the dust from going into your power supply. They're the rubber feet we were talking about earlier. Over here you can see it looks like our hard drive cages snap in here. So we'll look at that here in just a little bit. That's really about all there is to see on the bottom. And let's see what else we have back here. This is the rear 140 millimeter fan. And you can see we've got a second set of slots for a 120 millimeter fan, a slightly smaller fan. And these are slotted so the fan can move up or down in case it's interfering with anything. You have that bit of flexibility. And we'll take the back panel off. Here's that little depressed section there that you can just sort of put your thumb in and push. And that helps get the panel off there. And it has the same type of little ridge here. Actually, the ridge is down here. And this is open so that when you want to put this back in, very easy. You just start the bottom first and then rotate the top in, and you hear the clicks and you know it is secure. But again, this is perforated. You can see right through it, so we don't have to worry about any air not being able to circulate. So here's the back. We've got some really nice cable management here. I like this. We've got our little Velcro straps already attached and connected. We've got a couple of places here for a 2.5 inch solid state drive, which is going to take a little bigger screwdriver, or a little more force than what my fingers can do. That's pretty common the very first time you knock these loose. They rotate up and you can go ahead and get your drive mounted to it. And then pop it back in there. And then line it up. So we've got two of those. Down here we have our usual plastic trays for your 3.5 inch drives. We've got mounting provisions there for 2.5 inch drives. So you can put two 3.5 inch drives in here, or four 2.5. Yeah, two 3.5 or four 2.5. And the hard drive cage here is screwed in. So if you want this room open for some better cable management for your power supply, you can take this out if you're not going to use these at all. So that's nice. Let's see, what else have we got going on back here. We've got these clips that are for your cable management to keep your cables secure so they're not getting in the way. So it makes the back of the case, the back opening here, very nice for cable management. Let's see, what else? I guess we want to get the front off here. And according to the little manual that we looked at a moment ago, pull from the bottom. So let's see. Sometimes these are stiff the first time you pull them off. There we go. Oh, that came right off. Okay, so here we have the same type of filter system. And this should... Oh, okay, yeah. So if you want to take this out, yes, slide it, pop it up, slide it up, and then your filter panel comes out. Now, something you want to keep in mind when you're doing this, a lot of times you get a lot of dust trapped on here, and if you pop this and your system's running, you're going to stir all the dust up. It's going to suck it in and blow it right into your case. So what I've learned is when you're cleaning your panels, do it outside. Get your filter panels away from your system and do it somewhere where the dust that you stir up is not going to cause more problems. So here's the front. Again, we've got the factory mounted fans here, the 140 millimeter ARGB fans. These are the receivers for the front panel to pop in there. So this is really clean. Here's your I/O panel up here at the top. So I think we're ready to go ahead and get this very top section removed. And I took the two screws out. There's one here and one here, which lets this entire panel come out. So again, this is where you could mount your fans or radiator and fans, however you want to do it. But this is so nice to have the top of this opened up. So the whole top of your motherboard is accessible, which is important when you're trying to get these power cables to the top to plug into your motherboard. A shallow case, if this is shallow and there's not much room, that can be quite a challenge to get in there if you've got a top to the case. It can be very difficult. But as we're looking here, one thing that's nice is they've got this grommet. So this is for your cables to come up and supply power to your GPU. So that's very nice. Got some holes here. This is for some more cables, your USB header connections, things like that, your audio connectors, things like that. Over here, we've got these shrouds that sort of hide your cables because the edge of your motherboard is going to be over here. So there's really not much cable showing. So they've got these in a very nice place. We've got the opening here. This is for the thickness of a radiator. So if you put a radiator in the front, that'll space your fans back, or if you want to keep the fans in the front, however you want to do it. That's what this is for here. That allows for your radiator. And again, we've got openings here for all of your connections on the sides to make your cable routing that much easier. But boy, the top coming out of there, that is so nice. And if we look down here in the power supply compartment, you can see we've got a couple of rubber sections there. And this is to isolate any sound or vibration coming from your power supply. Now, if you remember earlier, I was showing you the user manual here. And in the back, it has a nice section called Additional Information. So here, it shows you the maximum height of a air cooler for your CPU, and that's important because if it sticks off of the surface of your motherboard, you don't want it to stick out so far it hits your panel here, which as thick as this case is, as deep as this is, I should say, that's really not going to be a problem. I can't imagine any power supply, or not power supplies, air coolers being a problem. So your maximum limit there is 165 millimeters. It also shows the maximum length here for your GPU of 407 millimeters. This is also interesting here. This is your vertical GPU riser, which is that little bracket I showed earlier. So here's the piece. It looks like it goes in like that. So this would sit in there, I guess, like that. So you'd take these slot covers out. Looks like you can leave the top two in. This would mount in there. We've got a couple of holes down here for the special. You need this special riser, and it says it's not included. Now I have a riser from another manufacturer. In fact, I might have two. I don't know how universal they are, so we'll just have to see if it fits because I really want to show off the vertical GPU, the mounting system there, but we'll just have to see. And again, in this additional information section, it shows you the assembly for the radiators and fans. On the top bracket shows your radiator compatibility there for water cooling. And yeah, 55 millimeter maximum thickness on the top, which for most systems should not be a problem. So we are almost ready to do a system build. For the system build, I'll be using this ASUS Z890 Pro Wi-Fi motherboard. I've got an ROG Strix 1000 watt platinum power supply, and we'll be using at least one of these really nice 360 millimeter coolers. And last but not least, we'll be using this ASUS RTX 5070 TUF gaming graphics card. This is the overclocked 12 GB edition for the system. And as usual, I like to take a quick run to the manufacturer website and see if there's anything interesting here. This sort of highlights what's going on with the case. There you can see the original price is $164.99. It's currently on sale for $139.99. You can look at all the information from the case. You can see it's available in white or black. We can look at all of the information here about the cooling. They've got some little videos you can watch. Talks about the fans. Talks about the interchangeable side panels, detachable top. Talks about all the space that you've got in the case, and then your connections and ports, things like that. And at the very top here, you've got the tech specs if you want to get some more information there. Of course, all that's on the side of the box. Support, we really don't have to worry about firmware or BIOS updates, anything like that, but you can get your user manual there if you lose your paper copy. Alrighty, so I've got the motherboard in. It looks very nice, no issues, fits in there just perfectly. I've got the riser here that I talked about earlier. This is from Fractal Design. This should allow me to do a vertical GPU mount. On the surface, it looks like the holes line up, but I'm not going to know for sure until I get this bracket in, get everything set up. So I got all the little slot covers off there. And this bracket should pop right in. Yeah, it goes in there just like, almost like that. There we go. All right, so that's in. Now there's a little bit of an offset here on the bottom of this, so I'm going to have to use a couple of washers to space it just right. So let me get this installed and see if the graphics card does fit. Okay, bad news, folks. I am not going to be able to get this to work. There is a huge gap at the bottom where this would plug in. So kind of answers my question, and I sort of suspected that I already knew the answer, that these are not really universal. So in order to make this work, I'll need a special riser cable directly from ASUS, one that they can supply. But I don't have one, so we're just going to put the configuration back to usual, and the graphics card will just sit in there like that. Okay, next we will get the power supply in there. Okay, so moving right along, I'm getting this test system built. And one thing I noticed, and this is kind of important, at least important to me, one thing sometimes you notice on a brand new power supply, when you're pushing in the connectors here, sometimes they just don't go in very easily. Hurt your fingers trying to get them in there. You know, the first time you're getting these connectors plugged in, everything is stiff. And this one, everything just goes in with a nice smooth click. I mean, everything I push in here, it just goes in easily, and I'm not tearing my fingers up trying to get stuff to go in there. So very nice. And earlier I did take out the hard drive cage housing there. Give me a little more room down here, although it shouldn't be a big deal, but it's nice to have some more space for cable management, and I won't be using any 3.5 drives or anything down there, so might as well open that area up. 2 screws in the bottom, you take them out from the bottom of the case, and then that whole assembly comes right out. Now the other thing, as I was looking at the back of the case, a lot of times there's a SATA connector to supply power to like a fan hub or RGB hub, which we don't have here. So I don't need any SATA connectors, any SATA power for anything. I'm not going to be using any 2.5-inch drives. But we do have a couple of connections back here. These are important. So this is for your RGB effects, and this is for your fan. And this actually, these splice into all of the fans and all of the RGB connections for the fans, so that everything is controlled from a single source. So you plug this into your motherboard, all of your fans will run at the same speed, whatever the motherboard tells them to, and then your RGB effects here, everything will go through this this connector right here. Then we've got the rest of the connectors here for the motherboard, which we will fish these through and get those to the front here in just a little bit. And with a modular power supply, I try to get all of the connectors that I know I'm going to use plugged in first, because when your power supply is tucked away in here, now this one wouldn't be too bad because we don't have anything in front of it, but sometimes if there's not a lot of room, you get everything assembled, then you realize, oh, I need another set of cables for power for something, and it can be very difficult to get your hand in there without taking the power supply out again. So I try to plan ahead and get what cables I'm going to be using connected before I get the power supply installed. And I've got the main power connector fished through here. And let's see. Now, this can often be an enormous pain to get plugged in or unplugged, either way. And sometimes it feels like you're going to damage the motherboard or crack it because you're having to pull or push so hard to get it in there. So let's see. I suspect Try to support it from the back, but let's see. Oh, that went right in. That went right in. That's nice. Yeah. That just tells me that the tooling they're using for these connectors is well maintained and designed to spec. And now I'm getting these CPU power connectors fished up through here. I'll go around front and get those connected here in a moment. And I like the cable management down the side here. Keeps these looking nice and neat. And again, I've got plenty of room down here to stash any extra cables. This is the main 24-pin connector. I've got to get it inside here. We'll do that here in just a moment. The other nice thing is the back of the motherboard, easy access if you need to change out coolers. We've got a big slot here for when some motherboards, now they're coming with the 24-pin power connector on the back, which is nice for cable management. I haven't seen one of those yet in person, but I hope to soon. But that will be nice. And then some motherboards have an M.2 slot on the back. Whether you can access that or not depends on where it is on the motherboard. So that's a different thing to cover later. If I get a motherboard that has one of those on the back. Actually, I've got one. It's a mini ITX, but I don't know where the layout is. So I will go ahead and get this cable secured. And these two connectors also just snapped right in about as smoothly as they possibly could. And it's always important to get these plugged in early on because especially if you have a shallow case and there's not much room here and you're using a large air cooler right here and then you realize that you forgot to plug these in, you're going to be taking your cooler back off to get access to that area. Some motherboards are a little different as to where they put these connectors, but if they're up here in this top corner, you want to get those plugged in early. And earlier I mentioned on this cable here, this is your USB-C connector for the front panel. And if you look, it is keyed. It will only go in one way. Well, it's only supposed to go in one way. So if it doesn't feel like it's just going in easily, do not force it, because if you're not careful, you can brute force it in there the wrong way. So it should go in there smoothly. Sometimes you hear a little click. This one's real quiet, but you can tell if it's completely engaged or not. But like I said, get a flashlight, look at the socket, look at the end of the cable, make sure you get it in there right. Okay, I've got everything plugged in that I need to plug in, and I've got the cables routed about as good as I'm going to get them. I could spend more time cleaning things up and making things a little prettier, but for now this is good. Now, looking down here, one thing I like is this front panel connector there. You don't have to spend time trying to feed each one of those little tiny plugs into those little pins. It's all done there in one step. So now I'm ready for the CPU, the cooler, and the graphics card, and then we should be pretty much done. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Staying on theme there, we've got some nice Viper gaming memory from Patriot. So thanks to Patriot for supplying it. There's the memory speed. Okay, the CPU is installed and we are ready to get the cooler on there. And earlier I was talking about this top bracket, the way it is so nice that you can get your radiator mounted and installed. Of course, you can tip it up for easy access to your fans, and it just rotates down, and then you put the screws in and you're done. Okay, the mounting plate there for the cooler is on the back of the motherboard, and I've got the fans all attached, and the power and RGB connector there is back here at the corner. We'll see how that fishes through the hole over here. I think that's where it's going to go, and then we'll connect to the motherboard. We'll probably come through here or maybe right here. Okay, we're almost ready to get this mounted to the motherboard, but this whole display panel just lifts right off. It's got some magnets in there, and you can see all the circuitry going on inside of the to drive the display. So we got a little cooling fan right there, which I'm sure is to help keep the circuitry there cool. Probably isn't really for keeping the pump cool, because you don't normally really need to keep the pump cool. And that just slides back over there and locks in with some magnets. So now we just get everything positioned and get the wires sort of tucked out of the way, and then we can power it up. And remember, you've got the thermal paste installed from the factory, so you don't need to add any thermal paste unless you have some brand of paste that you really like, in which case you would want to remove this. And you need to have the cover off to gain access to the mounting screws there. So we'll go ahead and get this connected. So that is probably one of the cleanest system builds I've done in quite some time. Now I just need to get the graphics card in there. So I've got the screw up here at the front to secure the card. It's in there pretty good, but you'll see the back here is a little wobbly. So the graphics card comes with this little support. It's got a magnet in the bottom so it sticks to the floor of the case, but this little piece here you can raise and lower to whatever height you need, and then you lock it down. So we'll put this here at the back of the card. Find a place, you don't want to get into the fan. Find the back corner. Raise it up till it's just starting to support the card, and then use the thumb screw to lock it, and that supports the back of your card so it's not moving around. Alright, so there it is, all assembled, and this is a really nice, clean system build. I really like it. So next we'll get the operating system installed, and here's what the case looks like. All powered up. I like the RGB effects on those three 140mm fans. And what I need to do is get the glass off here because of all the reflections, so that's a lot better. So now we can see clearly what's going on inside the case. So you can see the three 140mm RGB fans there from the cooler. And again, the cooler is the ROG RYUJIN 360 ARGB Extreme. And what I'll do is stress the CPU so we can get some heat going through the radiator, and we'll stress the GPU to get a little heat dumped into the case. But I suspect with these three fans in the front and no restrictions between the fans and the components, along with the three fans at the top and the one at the back, and the way everything is so well ventilated. I mean, the only place that's not ventilated is the glass panel across the front, but everything else is really ventilated. So airflow should not be a problem, and we should not see any real concerns with temperature. And here is a list of all the components used in this system. Okay, so what I'll be using to stress the GPU is the fur mark, sort of in the background there. I've got to get the armory crate installed, and then we'll also stress the CPU. I'll probably use Prime 95, and we'll look at our idle temperatures, and then we'll look at our temperatures under a load. And I'm always a little leery of installing too much extra software, you know, stuff that runs in the background and can sometimes be a resource hog. I think it's gotten better over the years, but and I haven't run Armory Crate in a little while, so maybe it's not really an issue. So let me restart it and we'll get rolling. Okay, I've got the Armory Crate installed, went through all the updates. Seems to be pretty smooth. I don't see any issues with it, so maybe I'm just a little paranoid. It's different from what I recall the last time I used it, but it's been a few years. So you can see I've got the graphic here that shows the CPU temperature on the little screen there. It'll cycle through the screen, and then we should see the CPU temperature. Yeah, right there. So 25C there, and our GPU looks like it's idling at about 33C, 32, 33. So let's go ahead and get the stress test rolling and see what the temperatures look like. Okay, I've got Prime 95 running, which stresses the CPU. I've got Furmark running that stresses the GPU. And let's see, our temperature is 69 degrees Celsius on the CPU. I have the fan set to standard mode, and as soon as the Prime 95 kicked in, the fan speed took off, and there is a lot of air moving through here. And you can definitely hear the fans. I can feel the air coming through the top here also. And if you really want to reduce the restrictions on the top so that your CPU cooler can move as much air as possible out of the top of the case, using that as the exhaust, you can take the little magnetic filter panel out from the top cover. It's not quite as pretty as it is with the filter panel in there, but like I said, if you really need to move a lot of air, that's the way to do it. It does look a little nicer with that filter panel back in there, I will say. Even if you take a little hit on airflow, there's quite a bit of air coming through there. Like I said, those fans are really spooled up. And we are at 57, 58 degrees Celsius there. And the CPU is holding steady at 69 degrees Celsius. So let's go ahead and change the fan speed. Let's put this in silent mode. Okay, so we're running at standard mode. Let's see what the turbo mode sounds like. Not a whole lot different. How about full speed? No, it doesn't really change much. Let's go down to silent mode. That slowed things down a little. It's a little quieter, but I can still hear the fans. And our CPU temperature shows 71, so we're within... Okay, shows 71 on there too. All right, so let's get into the fan expert and slow things down a little, because it looks like we're holding the temperatures pretty firmly of our components. Let's look at our graphics card again. Yeah, we're still at about 58 degrees C. Okay, it looks like I had to install Fan Expert as a secondary part of this application here, part of Armory Crate. So I really do need to do the auto tuning before we really access the fan control. So to run the auto tune, the auto fan tuning, you have to have everything turned off. So I stopped the stress testing, and we'll let this do its thing and then fire it back up, and then we can sort of adjust the fan speeds to see how quiet we can get it while still maintaining decent temperatures under a load. Okay, so that definitely made a huge improvement. I went ahead and there's actually an AI cooling process that you can go through, and it will adjust your fan curve there. In fact, it creates a new one. You've got this blue line right here, and it definitely made a difference. It brought the fan speed down without sacrificing my temperature very much, because we're still running at the same roughly 59 degrees. Yeah, 57, 58, 59 right there. About the same on the GPU. And the CPU, we've gone up to 73 from 69 to 70, so we've added 3 or 4 degrees. But the fan noise is definitely much quieter. And you could spend some time doing some more tweaking and adjustments and probably get it even quieter without really affecting your temperatures much. And of course I have to turn the lights out. I almost forgot. So we can really take in the RGB effects. So you can see a little bit peeking through the top. Of course, definitely on the front. And then through the side glass. Very nice. And let's check out the pricing right now on Amazon. It is $164.99 for the all black case, or $164.99 for the white case, which is what we have here today. And I have to say, given the fit, form, and function, the overall build quality, the cable management, the RGB fans, the ability to move an enormous amount of air through here, the easy access to the filters, and the ability to build a system that looks this good, I have to give this the Overclockers Club Editor's Choice Award. So this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.